welcome to Ruvheneko Online. I am sitting today with Justice RITA Makarau, and today she wears the hat of the Chairperson of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, which we know as ZEC. As you know, the biometric voter registration was launched officially on the 14th of September, last week, Thursday, and it began now going to the public on Monday, on the 18th of September. So we want to get an update from her. We want to know what's been going on, and I'm sure many people have input as to what they've experienced, what they've witnessed in the last couple of days. But we do have until the 15th of January, and there's a question to say, is there going to be continued registration? So all these and more are going to be answered right now. Justice Makarau, thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Ruvheneko.
Thank you for giving us your time. I was on the Twitter handle for ZEC earlier today, and the last tweet was on the 9th of September. How do you value social media as a tool of communicating?
Yes, we do value social media as a tool of communication, and if you have noticed, we've just recently introduced the Twitter handle for ZEC. We've also introduced a Facebook page for ZEC, showing that we do value social media. But
so you know that people are very responsive there?
Yes, we do. Yes,
Good.
we do.
So how come you are not on social media
Because
yourself?
ZEC is on social media.
But you are also Justice Makarau in
Yes,
your own
I am.
capacity.
Yes, ZEC is the public institution. RITA Makarau is a very private person.
And she's not keen on that.
She's not keen
You
on
know,
social
some people
media.
call you our Zimbabwean Tuli Madonsela. So we wonder why. She's very accessible. Not to say you must be like her, but there is sometimes an expectation. So
I'll bear that in mind.
You'll think about
I'll
it.
think about it, yes, definitely.
All right, back to our business of the day, which is the biometric voter registration. Firstly, congratulations for launching.
Thank you.
We want to know the updates so far. Do you have any numbers for us?
Yes, the update, Ruvheneko, is you all know, we launched the program on the 14th of September, like you said. We then opened district offices on the 18th, which was on Monday. Monday, we had a very low uptake. I think all in all, we registered less than 800 people. Wow. But on Tuesday, the number had gone up. It had doubled. What is significant for us is not the actual numbers, but the fact that people are now turning out in numbers. We have doubled up the numbers. We started off at 15% of the capacity of the kits, which was fairly low. We are now on 33%. We are hoping that by the end of the week, we would have gone beyond 60%.
Right.
And when we hit 75%, that's first class.
Good. So countrywide, we have we saw a list that has all the stations where people can get registered so far. And in Harare, there's 2.
Yes.
Now, you've got people in Harare obviously raising the concerns. Why must I go to Mbare? Why must I have to go to Chitungwiza? Is there a reason you chose these 2?
Yes, these
locations?
are our permanent district offices. Zimbabwe has got 63 permanent district offices, and Harare happens to have only 2. Bulawayo has 1. We as ZEC, we've made representations to Treasury to have the districts expanded, to have the number expanded, and we're still awaiting for their concurrence. It's a fiscal issue.
Sure.
When you're setting up such an office, you need to look into things like accommodating that office, the personnel that will go into that office, the salaries and everything, the upkeep. So it is a fiscal issue, and once Treasury gives us the go-ahead, we will open more district offices in Harare. But for the time being, people will have to contend with the 2 offices that we have.
And I believe that the opening up of more offices for registration will depend on the other kits arriving, correct?
Yes, those will now be mobile registration centers. They will not be permanent. And when you say we're going to go mobile, we'll definitely be going out to the people. We'll find out where the people congregate. For instance, in Harare, we will not set up offices in permanent structures. We'll be setting up tents at places like Copacabana, for instance, 4th Street, Mbare Msika itself, where people congregate naturally. We'll try and catch them whilst they're doing their normal daily duties.
Right. And these kits that we're waiting for, when do they arrive?
According to the contracts, the kits are supposed to be in country by the 12th of October. But we are still talking to the supplier to see if they can make delivery a little bit earlier than that. But according to the contract, it's 12th of October.
And how do you take the criticism to say, why did ZEC start if they weren't ready, so to speak?
ZEC started because it was ready. So that is, to us, that is not a criticism.
The kits not being here has got nothing to do with
it. Has nothing to do with it, because we had 63 kits, enough for our 63 districts, and enough to train the remaining 8,500 kit operators that we'll now need for the blitz. So we were definitely ready.
And regards the actual practical registration process, maybe you've got feedback from some of your agents. What are some of the major concerns, and maybe something you'd want to highlight to people, especially where proof of registration is concerned, where IDs are concerned? Maybe tell us how that's going on the ground.
So far, we've had indications that most people are turning up with their ID documents, but with no proof of residence.
Right.
It is a legal requirement that there must be some document in one form or another proving their residence. Most people are turning up without that. They are resorting now to the use of the affidavit, and our commissioners of votes are being overwhelmed by the large numbers. We believe people out there do have some documents that attach them to their residence. Your water bill, your electricity bill, the one where you go up to juice up your electricity, that will suffice. A letter from your landlord, it need not be a formal document, but we do definitely need some proof of residence from each and every
I think when you opened up that affidavit idea, you can imagine many people either one got lazy to go and get those documents you speak of, and also some obviously who genuinely needed that provision, maroja, in a genuine space where they're sharing one room in a house with somebody. It might be a bit more difficult for them. So how are you going to manage that then going forward?
We'll keep on educating the people to say, please bring in any other form of the proof of residence, but when all else fails, we'll have to deploy a whole lot more commissioners of votes.
Yeah, because the truth is, even for me, I'm thinking, if I don't have the energy to get all those documents, I'm just going to take the affidavit, put my fingerprint on it, and
way
sign.
Out.
There is the easy way out. Wouldn't you
yes.
all want the easy way out? I think it's definitely more appealing. All right, and then the question of the speed of registration itself.
Yes.
How's that going now? Per
I wouldn't
individual?
worry much about that. Like in any exercise, when you start, you need time to warm up. We believe our people are warming up to the kids, warming up to the process itself. We have had reports that some people are taking as much as 45 minutes. And maybe at this stage, Ruvheneko, I just need to say something that may sound a little bit sexist. Men's fingers tend to be drier than women's fingers because of all the creams and lotions that we women use. So you'll find that the machines will easily register the fingerprints of all women rather than of men. So
This
my
is
advice
actually
to men,
interesting.
yes,
Right.
my advice to men is when you go to register for just this occasion, please use a little bit of lotion.
Zoraimafut. Okay, so that's very interesting. I think there was a time where we were at the State House, and this also happened
Yes,
there.
yes.
And it was definitely with the men. I can definitely concur with that. I witnessed it. So that's a very interesting factor. So it's difficult to register the fingerprints because of
If your
this.
fingers are dry, if your skin is dry, you just need to moisten it a little bit. And when the operators then suggest that rub your hair, rub your forehead, rub your chin, they're just
don't
trying
get
to
offended.
No.
That's if there's any oil there, because we know some men don't use
oil at all.
Yeah,
Yes.
and water, does that suffice?
No, water will not
Dampen your
suffice. You
fingers?
just
No.
need something to
Literally
to
moisturize.
oil them.
Yeah.
You need to oil them a little bit.
Interesting. Okay, and the budget that you spoke of was $17 million for the biometric voter registration process. What is the full budget for the entire
The
election
full
process?
budget for the elections, we have put it at 274 million. This is the figure that we have submitted to Treasury. We're still talking to them and still adjusting here and there, but that is the full budget
That is needed.
that is needed for the elections in 2018.
Right. And of the 17 million that you got allocated, has it all been exhausted?
No, of course not. No, we're just starting to draw down on it because we're at the beginning of the program.
And this 274 million, do you suspect that you'll get it?
We
And
will.
where is the Treasury going to get this money from?
Treasury will support us to the best of its ability. They have never failed us in the past, and we have no reason to believe that they will fail us in the future.
Interesting. And then on the voters' roll,
Yes.
the old voters' roll,
Yes.
what actually has happened to it? Where has it gone?
We believe it is still there in the database, the civil registry database where it used to reside. That is with Mr. Tobaiwa Mudede.
Right.
We never had custody of it, so we cannot say with certainty what has happened to it. Yes, ZEC never had custody of that voters roll.
And it's not a query that you might want to raise? It's not a concern in any way?
Not really, because we are starting on a fresh new voters roll.
Right.
To us, this is actually a blessing in disguise that we are going biometric. Because we're using a new system, it compels us to start afresh and to come up with a new voters roll that we'll call ZEX.
Right.
Yes.
So this one, you'll have complete custody over it.
Yes.
Through this
yes.
BVR.
All the faults in it will be ours.
Right.
Yes.
And you take full ownership of that.
We do.
So there's no, I mean, on a genuine level, I mean, for this voters roll to still be somewhere out there existing, some very skeptical people might say, well, what are they going to do with it? Are they going to use it to input things anywhere? I mean, is it not something we need to be above the board with?
It becomes obsolete it just becomes irrelevant. Nobody's going to make use of it for any purpose. So it dies a natural death.
Right.
And people shouldn't really worry about it. It's no longer relevant. It's no longer useful for any purpose.
Right. And now I understand as well, as citizens, we are not entirely compelled to register on a new voters roll when there's an existing one. So explain to us about how those presidential powers worked and the constitutional amendments that were made.
There's been a change to the law which now says that there will only be one voters roll.
Right.
So there is no longer an old roll to make reference to. And my advice to the people of Zimbabwe is that all those who wish to vote in 2018 should come and be enrolled on the new voters roll.
Right.
There is no old voters roll to fall back on anymore because of the new the new law that has been enacted.
All right. And now the main purpose of biometric voter registration, there are a lot of benefits and there's also a lot of concerns. Anything with technology always comes with a bit of resistance because it's something new.
Yes.
But maybe you can highlight to us what you would say are the key benefits of BVR that we need to embrace as a people.
I would describe it not maybe as a key benefit, but the major advantage of having BVR. BVR is this capacity or this facility where it can deduplicate registrations. So if a person is registered twice or several times, there is a facility to be able to detect that and then deduplicate. So it will give us a clean voters roll. And that is one of the biggest advantages. And if you remember, Ruvheneko, one of the criticisms about the so-called old voters roll is there were allegations that it contained many duplicate registrations
and deceased
persons. And because we are starting afresh and we are asking everybody to present themselves, no dead people will present themselves to us, and so we won't have deceased persons on our voters roll.
Right. And following that question, some questions came online about this particular subject. There was a question from Tonderai Mudenge. He says, are the Zim courts able to nullify results if there is proof of irregularities like it was in Kenya?
Whilst I cannot speak for the judiciary because I'm wearing my ZEC hat specifically, I would want to believe that the Zim courts will rise to the occasion once they are presented, if need be, and if they are presented with adequate evidence. Yes, they will.
And on this, as well as a question around, MDC has accused you, in particular, Justice Makarau, of failing to stop ZANU-PF rigging in 2013. Was the 2013 election rigged?
No. Not to my knowledge.
Right.
And nobody's come to me with any evidence that they were rigged. So I don't believe they were rigged.
And this process now with BVR is supposed to completely annihilate all those concerns?
Most of those concerns, especially as they relate to the voters roll, the status of the voters roll, the integrity of the voters roll, and the use of the voters roll in elections.
The opposition would beg to differ in their questioning. Question as well online said, does ZEC have a server, and will political parties be allowed to examine this server? Who is supplying the server? So it's a three-part question.
ZEC does have a server. I'm not quite sure which server they are referring to, but in the process we will need something like 2 servers. We will need what we call a consolidation server, which is the server where we will consolidate all the data that is going to come from the field.
Right.
That consolidation server came with the BVR kits from Luxton. Then we do have a server where we're going to store the data, which will store the database. That server has always been with ZEC, supplied by the UNDP a few years back for all our other purposes, but now it has been realized that it may have inadequate capacity, and so UNDP is going to upgrade it. And the short answer to the other question is no. Political parties will not be allowed to inspect it.
Why not?
They've got to trust ZEC. We're an independent commission. They can't come into my kitchen when I'm eating. They've asked for a meal, I'll serve them the meal.
Are they not constitutionally allowed to challenge
No,
that?
they are not.
They have to just trust that you are the
They
body
have
that
to
is
trust us,
entrusted
yes,
to handle this process.
And in any event, whatever is going to come out of that kitchen where we are cooking, we're going to lay it out for inspection. People will then have a chance to go through the voters roll and tell us if there are any duplicate registrations, multiple registrations, or any other errors on that voters roll. So theirs is to inspect what is going to come out of that process and then give us a feedback.
I think another concern that came was around that authority that you speak of, that ZEC is in charge of this process and it must be trusted. There is a question around yourself as an individual, given your political history. People do sometimes believe that you might be affiliated with the one party, and unfortunately there was a picture, I don't know if you've seen it, that's been circulating, where you were speaking with our head of state at the State House last week, and body language deportment showed you kneeling down, at his feet, and you were talking to him. What do you say to all of this? Because you are the face of ZEC, and people want to know, are you detached or not?
I am very detached. And when I was speaking to him, I was speaking to him in his capacity as head of state. I think what people will forget is that in 2013, when I was appointed, I also spoke to the then vice president, who was Morgan Tsvangirai. No questions were raised about that. I will speak to any office bearer in my capacity as chairperson of ZEC.
In that, the question again was the deportment, that it looked as though you're subservient.
I have been brought up to say that when you're speaking to somebody who's older than you, you kneel down. That's how I've been brought up, and it was difficult for me to change that just like that when he called me to his side.
So that was a combination of culture, because I mean, in a proper business setting, so to speak, that wouldn't really happen.
Yeah, I found myself kneeling to the Chief Justice if I have to speak to him. I can't get rid of that upbringing, like I said.
Even in the courts, even at work.
Even at work, I find myself kneeling. Maybe I need to go to training and...
It's a question, as I said, when people perceive this, especially because of what follows you regarding affiliation, people would like to know, are you really, really independent of any political parties? And I guess you've answered that.
Definitely I am.
Yeah. And then the voter registration agents, there's a question as well. Are there going to be agents to monitor the registration process?
Political parties and interested groups are eligible to field in observers. I think an advert will soon be running, and they can then come in and have their observers accredited to observe the process.
So you're okay with that?
We are okay with that.
Wherever they come from?
Wherever they come from, as long as they are accredited by our team, we have no problems.
And the accreditation process, I guess that's the question.
There is the usual accreditation process, like the one that we use when we are accrediting observers for an election.
Right.
We'll use the same process for accrediting observers for the voter registration exercise.
Right. And then there will also be election observers allowed?
Yes, later on at a later stage when the election has been called.
And who approves those? Is that ZEC?
It is ZEC that approves those in terms of state regulations.
And so we also remember the past elections, people would blame the head of state to say he did not allow observers into the country.
Maybe it's a twofold question. ZEC will approve of observers, but when it comes to immigration, who can come into the country, that falls under the Department of Foreign Affairs and the head of state. ZEC has no say in that.
So you're shifting the blame over to head of state again?
Not really, but we are not in control of the foreign policy of this country. Who are our friends and who are not our friends? If they decide that we will not have people coming from a particular country to observe our elections, it's not within our powers to say allow them in.
Is there anyone right now who's not allowed to come and observe?
Not that we are aware of. We have not heard any statements coming from Foreign Affairs on who is going to be allowed to observe the 2018 elections.
But there's no one who's blacklisted, so to speak?
No.
To say they can't observe Zimbabwean elections?
No, not as far as we know.
Media and as well as NGOs and any other
political
organizations?
Interests, not as far as we know, no.
Okay. And then there's Electoral Act Chapter 213. Please explain this to us. And what does it mean?
That is the act that governs elections, that governs our powers, our mandate, and that is the Bible according which we go to when we're conducting elections.
Right. And then the MDC demonstrations that are ongoing. There's a question here around the continued voter registration. So maybe it's two-pronged as well. The MDC demonstrations, they are not happy with what's been going on. I think to use the word happy is very even a light term, but they're making a lot of noise against this entire process.
Yes.
And they're a key political party in terms of opposition.
Maybe they should come to us and speak to us,
Yeah.
because we do have these platforms, so we engage them regularly.
Right.
We have not stopped those platforms, and maybe before they make a lot of noise outside, they could also come and talk to us.
Have they not?
I'm not aware of their complaints against this recent exercise, save for the court application, which I can't talk about because it's sub judice.
Sure.
But apart from that, I'm not aware of any other complaints that they are making.
Right.
And we open our doors to them. We invite them. If they've got complaints, after they've demonstrated, they could still come and talk to us.
I believe the Justice Makarau has made it clear that there is an open door to discuss and address issues, and the platforms that are created by ZEC to raise issues should also be brought up. It's not every day that we get to sit down with Justice Makarau. It's not been easy to pin her down, but she's finally given us the time. So there are provisions to be able to air those views. The other question then is around continued voter registration. If you can clarify this. Many are worried, thinking that after the 15th of January, they can't register to vote. Please explain this.
No, we have continuous voter registration in Zimbabwe. It has started now. With the proclamation, it started on the 18th of September. It is going to continue beyond the 15th of January 2018, and it will continue even beyond the elections. Even after the elections have been called, there shall be continuous voter registration. And for the purposes of the election in 2018, the voters' roll shall close 12 days after nomination court.
Right, and then it'll resume again.
And then it will resume again,
Okay,
yes.
I think that clarifies a lot. Many people were concerned about that. And just your personal thoughts on the diaspora vote, Justice Makarau, with something like BVR being introduced. Anything technological is quite exciting for many of us, and it can open up doors to something like a diaspora vote. Do you think that we could be heading in that direction for 2023?
For 2023, yes. A lot of debate, though, has to go into it and see how are we going to administer the diaspora vote. Many other countries have come up with their own variations, and Zimbabwe needs to adopt something that is specific to its needs and something that will actually meet the demands of its people.
Okay.
But yes, 2023, I think diaspora vote may be a possibility.
And then to clarify again for diasporans on the aspect of coming to participate in these elections, if you live outside the country, can you come and register during this process?
Yes.
Then return again.
And then return again on voting day and cast your
vote,
ballot. Yes.
even if your proof of residence is outside of the country.
When you come to register as a voter and you give us your biometrics, you also have to give us a proof of residence of an address within Zimbabwe.
This is the issue.
This is the issue.
This is the big issue, very contentious issue. There are many diasporans that are willing to budget to come and register and then come back. But with that particular provision you've just spoke of, it kind of blocks out many possibilities, because many have family that's deceased. Many people left the country for different reasons. Have a torina mushakuno or an address that they can refer to. So what do we do about that? And they mentioned Sabuku, headman of their village.
Every Zimbabwean has got a home, even in those who are in the diaspora. I would want to say every Zimbabwean who is out there can claim an address in Zimbabwe, whether ndekwa mainini is mai vako, whether ndekwa babamdiki ndi baba vako. So as Zimbabweans, it's part of our culture that we never lose touch with our families.
Right.
So you will definitely have an address which you can claim to. It need not be your own house. It need not be your parents' house, as long as it is a relative's house where you say, when I'm in Zimbabwe, I reside at that address. And all of us we do have that kind of address.
Well, I hope that's clear, because it does allow for a lot of questions that I know have been coming up, especially on social media discourse around the diaspora. But just to, now as we wrap up, going back to this issue of proof of residence, when we look at what you've just said and what you said earlier on in the interview, it seems as though this is an issue that might not have even needed to be there, because there's so many ways around it. If one can just sign an affidavit on the day of arriving with the officer, if one can just put address ya mainini, what is the purpose then? Why not just say, if you're Zimbabwean with a valid ID, come and vote?
Yes, because according to our law, residence is one of the qualifications that qualifies you as a voter. You must be qualified to be a voter in a particular area. So the requirement to bring the proof of residence is for us to tie you down to a particular voting area and then to tie you down to a polling station.
But with a BVR system, I know that voting is not going to be electronic.
No, it's not.
But the registration process, surely that cancels out that concern. That no register or no voter. I don't think that's necessary, is it?
It is necessary in terms of our law. We actually, each and every voter is now going to be assigned to one polling station.
Where they register?
Where they will vote. You can register anywhere, but you'll only be able to vote from one polling station. So for us to allocate you to that particular polling station, we need an address within the catchment area of that polling station. And we need you to prove that you are actually a person who resides in that catchment area.
But if I live in Tokyo or I live in China,
yes,
and I've put address ya mainini, that kind of contradicts what you said.
But if you are coming to vote, where are you going to vote from? I believe you are going to still stay in a Mainini and vote from Mainini's address.
So how do you allocate where I'm voting? When I register, do you give me that allocation?
When you register, we then allocate you to a polling station given the address that you give us. If you give us an address in Highlands and it is near Highlands Primary School, we'll then allocate you Highlands Primary School as your polling station. If you register in Highlands but you're coming from KwaChendabuya and you give us an address at KwaChendabuya, we'll throw you back KwaChendabuya, even though you're registering in Highlands.
Okay. Well, I guess we could go around this debate for a while, but I think the idea is to understand whether we agree or not. That is what is happening. Constitutionally, what ZEC is doing is above board. And I think, I've always had conversations with people and said, at the end of the day, we need to support this and we need to participate in the electoral process, whether that's dialogue or whether that's registering to vote. At some point, we've got to get up and do something about it beyond just making noise. So on that, on the list of polling stations, there was a question as well saying, will opposition parties have been waiting for ZEC to give them this list? Apparently you were supposed to have provided them with this list and they haven't yet received that list. What's going on there?
You mean the list of polling centers nationwide? We have told them how many centers are going to be in each province. We have also told them that the determination of the actual centers is going to be a provincial level. We have then invited them to give us names of their people who will liaise with our provincial elections officers so that they will go and sit around and determine the actual locations. For instance, if we say Bulawayo is going to have 200 polling centers, we will want that local team to then determine where the 200 polling centers are going to be. And we have that invitation is still open. They can take it up and go and liaise with our provincial elections officers for the rollout of the provincial plans, if I may put it that way. Yes.
And back to, that one, I think we can only wait and see how that unfolds, because if they haven't submitted what they need to, we can't, ask you more further questions there. But on the issue of Chitungwi Zanbare, for example, in Harare, it is no secret that when it comes to, for example, the politics of the day, where the ruling party has a stronghold in those particular areas, others are thinking that this is just a gimmick to register Vanhu Vavo before anybody else.
ZEC's aim is to register all eligible Zimbabweans, notwithstanding their party affiliations. At the moment, we are looking at all eligible Zimbabweans, wherever they may be, and we hope to live up to that promise to register not less than 7 million Zimbabweans.
7 million Zimbabwean voters. That is a very high target for you and me to think about. And when we do go and register, I think it's important to do it. I think let's make it a group activity. Mobilize as many people as we can. I don't know what the outcome of the election is. Nobody does. And it's interesting that people are so engaged in the electoral process from as early on as just registration. And I want to know from you, as your parting shot, Justice Makarau, what you would say to inspire the Zimbabwean electorate to be part of this election. Speaking as you, please know that people take a lot of what you say with a pinch of salt. I think do maybe take the opportunity to inspire.
Please don't take this with a pinch of salt. I would say all Zimbabweans, it is our right to vote. Therefore, it is our right to go and register as voters. Let us go in large numbers and register to vote.
When are the elections going to be?
I don't know.
So how do you prepare when you don't know?
We know it is going to be sometime in 2018, according to the Constitution, around about July, August 2018, but we don't know the exact date.
And the rumors that it might be much sooner, as early as March?
We don't know.
Only one man knows?
Yes, the president.
And does he have absolute authority to make that decision on his own?
Yes, he has. But in fixing the dates, he has to consult ZEC.
Right. So you are part of the process.
We will wait to be consulted.
Right. As to when you think it's best.
Not of when we think it's best, of when he thinks it is best.
But what are the determining factors, just from your knowledge?
The determining factors will be, I would say, from my own personal perspective, is in administrative elections, is that we need to have all the fundamentals in place, and one of the fundamentals is a credible voters' roll.
Okay. So once that's done, hopefully, if we respond as Zimbabweans and register in our numbers, then that's one of the factors. That's the beginning of the process.
Yes.
Okay, well, you heard it, and I hope that we can observe that, and I hope that we can be part of this process. And I want to thank you again
you.
Justice Rita Makarau, for giving us this time
thank you for
to sit
having
down
me.
with you. I hope it won't be the last. There's going to be so much to talk about over this journey. So thank you very much for that. So yeah, we will keep in touch, and please keep your questions, your comments, and this dialogue going on around elections. Z2018 is our hashtag, and of course we're working very closely with our partners, and I know that even the Election Resource Center has a big, a lot to say around this election process, and we know that they're going to be doing a lot to try and observe and monitor and encourage people to vote in the upcoming election. So let's be Zimbabweans and be patriotic no matter where we are in the world. Thank you again.
No, thank you. Thank you.
That's it from us. Be good. If you can't be good, be safe.